Um,
Why don't
I
you tell us
Go
about
ahead.
that journey? Why don't you tell us about that journey? You just tell us kind of a little bit of background about yourself, and I'll just hand it over to you. So you can share the screen if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally up to you. So you take it away.
So good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, like Fricker said, he kind of pushed me into being starting the GIS club and being the president of it. And um, yeah, as I've progressed through my career, I've kind of found that a lot of people that end up in the GIS field kind of stumble into it, and that's kind of how I ended up becoming a GIS analyst, like I am today. I didn't start college thinking that I was going to um, that I was going to be a GIS analyst. I kind of just stumbled into it and I liked it, and here I am. I graduated in 2020 with a bachelor's of science in anthropology and geography from Cal Poly, and I'm currently a GIS analyst with Environmental Science Associates. Uh, we kind of go by shorthand of ESA. Uh, like Dr. Fricker said, I applied for an internship at Caltrans while I was at Cal Poly, and that lasted for about a year. It was really pivotal moment for me in kind of deciding that I wanted to go all in on GIS. I had a really good mentor there, and I kind of got to see, real world applications of what GIS is capable of, and I really enjoyed it. So I continued that for a year, and once I graduated, I could no longer keep my internship, and I started looking for other work. So for a short amount of time during COVID, I was working for another company called Ivari GIS Consulting, doing field data collection. Uh, we mostly helped out with field data collection to support the transition from conventional street lighting to LEDs. LED lighting, and that there's a lot of analysis that goes behind that in terms of needing to know the current wattage, how far it is away from the road, how high the light is from the road, what the land use is, if it's a neighborhood, industrial area, or transportation corridor. All of those things affect the type of lighting that you want. Well, smart lighting, effective lighting that's not going to overlight and also not underlight. So that was a lot of fun. I got to do some traveling for that. I think that was probably one of the more exciting jobs that I had. I got to spend about 6 months in San Jose. Then I went and spent some time in Mississippi, some time in Tennessee. I kind of got to see some areas of the United States that I never thought I'd see. Um, Super important, like aspect of it. I don't miss doing field work, but ground truthing is important. So that was fun. But since that was 100% it was 100% travel position. I never knew where I was going to be 1 month to the next. So I kind of left that pretty shortly and went back to San Diego for a position with Cal Fire for a year. That was a really exciting job. As I'm sure many of you know, wildfires in California have been becoming more and more prevalent and extreme. So for Cal Fire, a lot of what I worked for the pre-fire division. So during the off season or outside of fire season, I helped the foresters kind of figure out where we wanted to do our fuel management plans or projects. So they take a look at where historic fires have been, and to try to determine, the land cover type and the likelihood of a fire happening in that area again. And then also looking at areas that haven't had fires in a long time and that fit certain vegetation types that might be, a breeding ground or, allow a wildfire to get really out of hand. So that was a lot of fun. We also, during fire season, I'd assist with emergency mapping. So I'll show you a map that I made for that in a little bit at the end of the PowerPoint. But um, on a few different occasions, I got to go out and for about a month, like 3 week time span, I was working out of a trailer about 50, 60 miles from the actual wildfire. And me and a team of GIS analysts would kind of take in all of the data, whether it be GPS data coming from firefighters right on the ground, fighting the fire, telling us exactly where it's progressing, where they put it out, and then in the evenings, flying with infrared or flying. They would contract planes to fly over the fire with infrared cameras, and we'd be able to take a look at the exact footprint and kind of between using the GPS data that we were given and the infrared data, kind of come up with the best estimate of the footprint and calculate acreage and all that. So, when there's wildfires and you hear on the news like, oh, it's 200 acres or 100,000 acres and this percent contained, I was on that team on the back end, kind of calculating all of that, and then also preparing field maps for the firefighters for the next morning. So oftentimes have really like late nights where I was, preparing and printing hundreds and hundreds of maps to give out to each firefighter so that they had the most up-to-date, accurate information so they could stay safe. Did that for a year. That was also pretty chaotic during fire season. It's kind of hard to tell when they're going to send you out, how much time you're going to be able to spend at home. There was often days where I worked 12-hour days and or even more. You can work up to 16 hours a day when there's a wildland fire incident. So that kind of got a little bit crazy for me because I was trying to start a family, sort of. And so I was looking also to kind of focus a little more on environmental work. So that gets us to my current position with Environmental Science Associates, where I support a huge team across mostly the West Coast, but we do have offices across the U.S. and we help out the GIS team. I'm associated with the NorCal team, and we have a Southern California team and Northwest region, and we support biologists, anthropologists, like our whole cultural team. So archaeologists, anthropologists, ecologists, geologists, hydrologists, and they're all working to get contracts to help with environmental permitting, habitat restoration, wetland delineations, and kind of my team's role in that is helping them to calculate those impacts. So if they're looking to remove a dam for restoration, they need to know how many acres of habitat is going to get disrupted by removing the dam, or and then there's also a big data management component to that as well. So a lot of the people that I work with that aren't GIS analysts, they do have a GIS background, but they're not the most savvy with it. So oftentimes my team on the back end, we're setting up an ArcGIS online web map for them to go and do field data collection. And then once they get back, we're taking that data in, we're calculating acreages, we're, if it's a large area, finding the center point of the project area, looking at different data sets to figure out, when we write this report, or when we're, trying to comply with SQL, like what sensitive habitat might be in the area, what sensitive species might be in the area, and then how we can best avoid disrupting any of that. So that's been a lot of fun. A big part of my current position, about 50% of my work is to do with the California high-speed train. So I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but it's been in the works for a long time. They're still working on it, and there's a lot of agricultural land that they're conducting construction through. So I kind of help with identifying where the potential habitat for California tiger salamanders are, and where this little fox you see here is a San King kit fox. Those are the two major species that we're looking out for on this project, or this section of the project. So the field team's out there looking for burrows that could potentially be home to these kit foxes or tiger salamanders, and we have to kind of keep track of that data, when we found it, the size of it, the time of year, the weather, and a lot of different aspects, and then we submit all the information to California Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and it's a lot of data management, but it's fun to work on these kind of projects and know that I'm playing a small part in these environmental projects that are going on. I ended up concentrating within the anthropology and geography major in environmental studies and sustainability. So this is kind of like right up my alley. I'm not exactly directly hands-on working as an environmental scientist, but working parallel with ecologists and environmental scientists to kind of help get these projects completed. And that I find a lot of satisfaction in that. So I've got a few map examples. Unfortunately, some of the clients that we work for have non-disclosure agreements, so I'm unable to kind of publicly share the end product of those, or projects are happening that it's not publicly known yet. So these are just some of I have a couple map examples that I have from things that are publicly available. Oh, went one too far, I think. Oh, nope, okay. So for instance, this is in Santa Clara County. They're looking to find a location for new housing developments, and part of that is trying to see the proximity of these potential sites in relation to active fault zones. So a lot of the U.S. doesn't have to deal with earthquakes. In California, we do. So a part of building smart is making sure that we're not building on an area that could get seriously impacted by natural disasters. So I created a few different figures for the geology team, and these green areas here are like potential areas for new housing developments, and these these yellow polygons and red lines and purple lines depict different types of faults, and they're going to make a decision based off that. And here is another map. This is one map that I made while working for CAL FIRE. There is an incident called the Inyo Creek Fire that was on the back end of Mount Whitney in Inyo County, and this is kind of an example of what on a daily basis we're creating. So you have like the entire footprint, and that black line on the outside kind of shows where we put the fire out. It's no longer progressing, and these red lines here are where the fire is still growing. So, using these lines here, the lines and polygons, we're able to kind of calculate, the total acreage and then how much is left, percent containment, and these are changing daily, right? So these fires they make some of the mega fires that are happening, they just explode, and moving from the morning to the evening, things can change quite drastically. So we're just giving this like a snapshot of what's going on. And so some things that I wish, or I've got some expectations versus reality, and some things I wish I knew going into the GIS field. I expected to be doing a lot of really, really cool projects. And that's not to say that you won't work on really cool projects. I feel like in the environment you're in for school, Fricker gives you the option to select, whatever you can imagine to do a GIS project on. You don't always get to do really, really cool things. But you get to do some cool things. And I don't know. I was kind of expecting to be doing cutting edge stuff all the time. You get to go. I don't know if any of you had a chance to attend the Ezra User Conference. I got to attend it in person one time in 2018, and it was really, really cool, very inspiring. You get to see, they showcase some of the most amazing projects going on across the world. And I was like, wow, I can't wait to get into this. And then reality, I don't know if you guys pieced it together, but a lot of the work I've been doing has been transportation related. So for Caltrans, it was repavement projects on state highways, and for Ibarra GIS Consulting, when I was doing field data collection, that was to support lighting those exact roads. CAL FIRE, when there is a fire, you have need to figure out how to get, if it's in a populated area, how to get the citizens out of that affected area as soon as possible, and how to get resources in. So again, transportation related. And now a big part of what I do is for California High Speed Train, and trying to get that completed with all the hoops you have to jump through to comply with CEQA, and that again, transportation related. So I think the environmental field is growing. I don't think, from what I've heard from the past few jobs, environmental work didn't slow down when COVID took effect. Actually, it almost increased a little bit. So it's nice to kind of be in an industry that feels a little bit recession proof, constantly growing. Another thing, I expected, a lot of the latest and greatest tools that Esri offers to be at my fingertips at work. A lot of times that's not the case. I'd say 3 out of the 4 positions I've had, we've used ArcMap and not ArcGIS Pro. This is probably the first job where I've had that are solely using ArcGIS Pro. A lot of reasons for that. There's like legacy data and Python code and models that are designed using ArcMap, and migrating those to ArcPro is pretty time consuming. So doesn't always, you're not always going to be using the cutting edge stuff that you see at the user conference every year. In my head, I thought there was going to be a lot more metadata. A lot of times we're lucky and we get like really good data sets and the metadata is awesome. A lot of times you get data from municipalities and there's just no metadata, and you kind of got to piece together stuff. And I'm sure I heard it a lot taking classes with Fricker, but he's like, use Google. Google is your best friend. Absolutely, Google is your best friend. I use Google more often than I'd like to admit, but there's ArcPro and ArcMap. There's so many tools and so many error codes. There's no way you're ever going to know it all. Someone on a forum somewhere has dealt with it and can probably help you out. So don't be afraid to use Google. Things that I wish I knew going into the field, it's a lot more data management than I thought. I thought it'd be like a lot of cool analysis and stuff, but a lot of it is data management. You got to be good at data management. I know I caught myself a lot of times trying to take shortcuts in the labs and stuff in class because I just wanted to get the PDF, turn it in. There's my visual. If you're not, really methodical about, the way you name your data and where you're saving it, it's going to be a nightmare in the future when you're trying to go back and replicate that. What I found is another thing that I wish I knew is, pay isn't everything. I've had jobs that paid a little more, and I found them to be very boring, and that's why I left. And right now, there's a happy medium somewhere in there between like work satisfaction and paycheck, and I feel like I'm close to that right now. So, yeah. And there are many ways to get from point A to point B. I've learned a lot of tips and tricks along the way from different coworkers and stuff, and the way you learn how to do one thing in a lab or through like an Esri tutorial, there's probably 2 or 3 other ways to do the exact same thing. So sometimes you got to think outside the box. I've gotten stuck in a project and I'm trying to like find out why I can't complete the analysis I need to complete. And I'm thinking very narrow-mindedly, and I ask a coworker and they're like, oh, try it this way. And then it works. So sometimes you just got to think outside the box a little bit. Yeah, that's it. My name's Fred. There's my email there. And also, if you're interested in kind of checking out what Environmental Science Associates does, there's a link there to our website. We're, like I just mentioned earlier, being in the environmental field, environmental regulations aren't really going away, and there's always construction happening, trying to like improve our roadways and increase housing in areas. So all of that has to comply with CEQA, at least in California. So growing. I think currently we have about like 500 employees, and we're projected to grow to about 700 before the end of the year, or before the end of next year. So yeah, I don't know. Stay in contact if you're interested. There might be some job opportunities in the future. I know we're continuing to grow, and a lot of other companies are in the environmental field are growing as well.
All right. Thanks, Fred. Let's give him a hand. Fred, do you like your new job?
Yeah, I do. I'd mentioned that at Cal Poly, I kind of like concentrated in environmental studies and sustainability. I don't know if all of you are anthropology and geography majors, but in the anthro-geog pipeline, you kind of have to choose a concentration. I chose environmental studies and sustainability. And yeah, I feel like where I'm at now, I'm surrounded by environmental scientists, people that are environmentally conscious, and most of the projects I'm working on are going to benefit some type of restoration project or something. So I think it's gratifying in that way. In fact, I recently just moved to San Jose, and I was driving on the 99 freeway through the Central Valley, and I got to see part of the project that I'm working on a daily basis. So it's kind of cool to like see, I'm managing borough points like all day, And it's kind of hard to put that in perspective. Or like I'm working from home behind my computer all day, and I don't actually get to go out in the field and see the stuff that's being collected. And I was driving by and got to see like, oh, there's a section of the high-speed rail that's going to be implemented, and that was kind of fun.
It's actually a real place.
Yes. As long as it's taking, it feels like it's not real, but it's out there.
Right. Cool. Thanks, Fred. Well, do you want to hear Grace? You're welcome to hang out and listen to what Grace is up to if you want.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to stick around. I'll be excited to hear what she's been up to.
I'm gonna stop the recording and then restart it just so there's